The sound of crashing waves and the creaking of wood beneath my feet filled the night air as I stepped onto the desolate deck of the Elysium, an abandoned cruise ship lost in the middle of the ocean. Our group of intrepid explorers had come seeking adventure, but we were about to discover something far more sinister than we could have ever imagined. The moon hung low on the horizon, casting eerie shadows on the ship's rusted and weathered exterior. My heart raced as I looked at the towering behemoth before me. It had been decades since anyone had set foot on this vessel, and the legends surrounding it were as haunting as the ship itself. Tales of lost souls, demonic rituals, and unholy curses had always swirled around the Elysium. Tonight, those legends would become our reality. I clutched the flashlight in my trembling hand, the beam cutting through the darkness like a knife. Beside me, my companions exchanged nervous glances, their faces illuminated in the pale glow of their own flashlights. There was Sarah, my girlfriend, always up for a thrill. Mark, my best friend, who had a fascination with the supernatural. And Lisa, the skeptical voice of reason who had reluctantly agreed to join us. We had all heard the stories, but we were young and foolish, thinking we could handle anything. The Elysium had been adrift for years, a ghost ship with no destination, no crew, and no hope. But tonight, we were determined to uncover its secrets, to document its eerie history, and to prove once and for all that the legends were nothing more than superstition. As we ventured further into the ship, the air grew colder and the sense of foreboding intensified. The walls were adorned with faded wallpaper, and cobwebs clung to every corner like spectral decorations. The ship's interior was a labyrinth of narrow corridors and abandoned cabins, each one darker and more unsettling than the last. "Are you sure about this, Alex?" Lisa's voice quivered as she glanced around nervously. "We're fine, Lisa," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "This is just a rusty old ship with a spooky past. There's nothing here that can hurt us." But even as I said those words, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The ship seemed to breathe around us, its ancient timbers groaning as if in pain. The walls whispered secrets we were not meant to hear, and the very air we breathed felt tainted. We reached the ship's grand ballroom, a cavernous space that had once been alive with laughter and music. Now, it was a ghostly echo of its former self, with broken chandeliers swaying ominously overhead. As we moved deeper into the room, our flashlights illuminated a sinister sight. In the center of the ballroom, a pentagram had been crudely etched into the floor, surrounded by cryptic symbols. "What the hell is this?" Mark muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. The sight sent shivers down my spine. The legends were true. This ship had been the site of unholy rituals, and we were standing in the heart of it. But that wasn't the worst part. As we stared at the pentagram, a low guttural growl emanated from the darkness behind us. We spun around, our flashlights revealing a figure emerging from the shadows. It was a creature unlike anything we had ever seen, a monstrous amalgamation of flesh and bone, its eyes glowing with malevolent fire. Demonic and twisted, it snarled and lunged at us. Panic washed over us as we scattered in all directions. Sarah screamed, and Mark and Lisa ran toward the nearest exit, but I was frozen in terror, unable to move. The creature was upon me in an instant, its claws slashing through the air. I felt a searing pain in my shoulder as its talons raked across my flesh. Suddenly, a bright light engulfed the creature, causing it to shriek in agony. Sarah had managed to shine her flashlight directly into its eyes, and it recoiled, retreating back into the shadows. Without a second thought, I grabbed Sarah's hand, and we sprinted after our friends, not daring to look back. We reunited with Mark and Lisa on the upper deck, all of us gasping for breath. My shoulder throbbed with pain, but the adrenaline coursing through my veins dulled the sensation. We had narrowly escaped the clutches of that unholy creature, but we knew our ordeal was far from over. "We have to find a way off this ship," Mark said, his voice trembling. But as we scanned the moonlit horizon, our hopes sank. The Elysium was adrift in the vast ocean, with no land in sight. We were trapped, surrounded by the abyss on all sides. Hours passed as we searched for any means of escape, but the ship's interior seemed to shift and change, leading us in endless circles. The malevolent presence that had awakened in the bowels of the ship was guiding our every move, like a puppet master pulling invisible strings. As exhaustion and despair settled in, we found ourselves drawn back to the ballroom, the site of our first encounter with the demonic entity. The pentagram and symbols on the floor seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, and we knew that confronting the darkness head-on was our only chance at survival. With grim determination, we began to recite the cryptic incantations written on the floor, hoping to banish the evil that had taken hold of the Elysium. The air grew thick with tension, and the temperature plummeted. Shadows danced and swirled around us, and we felt a malevolent presence closing in. But just as we thought we were doomed, a blinding light erupted from the pentagram, forcing the darkness to retreat. The ship shuddered as if writhing in pain, and we knew that our desperate ritual had worked. The malevolent entity had been banished. Exhausted and battered, we stumbled out of the ballroom and back onto the deck. To our amazement, we found the Elysium was no longer adrift. Land was visible on the horizon, a distant beacon of hope. As the ship slowly approached the shore, we clung to each other, thankful to have survived our nightmarish ordeal. The legends of the Elysium would live on, but we knew the true horror that lay hidden within its depths. We had faced demons in the middle of the ocean and lived to tell the tale, but we would carry the scars, both physical and emotional, with us for the rest of our lives. The Elysium had become our personal abyss, a place where the line between the living and the dead had blurred, and where the horrors of the past could not be easily forgotten. We had unlocked its secrets, but in doing so, we had also unleashed the darkness that dwelled within. The four of us descend a steel ladder attached to the side of the ship. As we do, a cold feeling of vertigo fills my body from head to toe. However, since I was a kid, I've never had a fear of heights, nor felt vertigo this strong. I'm the last one to climb down, as I take a quick glance back to see the other three in the water. However, none of them are swimming to shore. They're just suspended in the water, with their arms and heads above the surface, looking towards the shoreline that's a little over 1,200 feet away. They're oddly still, as if their feet are touching the bottom, which is impossible at this depth. I get low enough on the ladder to spring myself off of it into the cold water below. As I quickly re-submerge, I find myself in a dark, echoing hallway that's filled with water up to my neck. I suddenly realize that I'm somehow still on the ship, as the walls have the same design that we saw inside. I fall into a sudden panic as all possible hope leaves my body. I feel a chilling grip tighten around me, as if something is quite literally draining my soul. My breath quickly deepens as my vision blurs, and I slowly black out. My consciousness snaps back as I painfully awaken, coughing up salty water and breathing violently as my body attempts to restore a steady airflow to my lungs. With my vision slightly blurry, I peer at my surroundings, and it hits me. I'm back inside that malevolent ballroom. My entire body doesn't have the strength to move, as I notice the others laying on their backs around me. I try my best to crawl over to Sarah, but as I do, that same chilling grip nullifies any remaining strength I had. As I lay there petrified looking at Sarah's unconscious body, I hear a familiar fleshy sound. It was the creature that we ran into, the one that marked me with its unholy talons. It lumbered closer and arched backwards to look at the ceiling, wailing in a demonic roar, as a black viscous smoke protruded from its elongated mouth, spilling over its body onto the floor around it. Its entire body suddenly collapses in on itself, as the dark smoky matter quickly begins to spread to every surface in the room. A red glow started to emanate from the ceiling as if a portal to hell was eating its way into our reality. Suddenly, due to the commotion, my friends began to violently awaken, coughing up water, as they then quickly come to fearfully notice what's happening before their very eyes. A deep and deafening rumble shakes the atmosphere. Sarah quickly looks at me. She seems to be screaming, yet I am unable to hear anything over the roaring portal as it easily dampens out all other sound. Our bodies began to elevate, as we're suspended before the all-encompassing demonic doorway in front of us. To my complete horror, I see Lisa's face, screaming in terror as her life begins to drain from her. Her body becoming gray and lifeless, sagging as her soul is consumed by the portal. Mark's eyes suddenly widen as his mouth starts to elongate, and the same begins to happen to him. I close my eyes as hard as I can after seeing my friends horrifically killed. I quickly opened them to look at Sarah, praying she was untouched. But it was too late. By the time I opened my eyes, the deed had already been done. Her gray, lifeless body lay suspended next to my friend's. I go completely numb as crippling sorrow drains my will to live. I can't even hear myself cry as I beg whatever this thing is to take me and return her to the living safely. My sorrow for my girlfriend and friends quickly transforms into utter rage and fury as my gaze pierces deep into the wailing portal with nothing but malice. A blank face materializes and I quickly realize it's my own. The face then lunges towards me, covering my own, as pain I never thought possible spreads through every vein and nerve in my body. With a final roar, the portal engulfs the room as my body falls into pure darkness, with the sounds of my screaming being the last thing to echo throughout that cursed ballroom chamber. The atmosphere of the ship returns to its sinister but dormant state as it steadily floats amidst the misty open waters we originally found it. There was never any shoreline. It was all a facade to only heighten our hopes, and then tear them away. The incantations we all spoke never vanquished the evil of the ship. It tricked us into speaking the words that sealed our fates to eternal torment aboard the vessel. To anyone that should find this ship and hear our faint cries amongst the rotting halls and creaking hull, do not board this ship, for as the moment you do, you and all that are with you are damned.